This might just be the most expensive delivery ever. Take a look at this. Now, whilst we're watching this for the inevitable that you can probably already guess that's going to happen, in this video you might be wondering, well, what if that's your car? And what are you going to do about what's about to happen? That's going to be an expensive scratch. In fact, it is more than a scratch for those that watch Monty Python. That is not just a scratch. That has probably irreparably damaged both the front and the back door and the rear wing. And a lot of that is going to have to be replaced. I would have thought. I'm not a mechanic and I'm not a car detailing expert, but maybe some people are that could let me know in the comments what you think about that. But let's watch it again while I talk to you about that. So many people will be saying, what is it that you are supposed to do if you are in this situation? Now, it's unclear whether this delivery driver is delivering to this house at all. It might just be using this driveway, because if you look at the, if I just pause it for a moment, it looks like the road goes off into the distance over there. The vehicle, the delivery vehicle, may have realized he's gone the wrong way and he's got to turn around. And so he's using the driveway to turn around, which is not legal, by the way, because being on someone else's property is trespass, even to turn around. And if you do something on that causes damage, for example, which could be criminal damage, it could be aggravated trespass. So there's more than one offense going on here. It can also be criminal damage because it's being reckless as to where the damage is caused, as I've recently reminded others on Twitter or X. Everyone seems to call it X and then qualify, formerly Twitter or Twitter. Now it's called X, and they always seem to qualify it. But anyway, as I've mentioned on there recently, criminal damage can come about through reckless behavior. For example, throwing stones in the general direction of a window is reckless as to whether the window gets smashed. If the window gets smashed, you can't then just say, well, I didn't mean to, because you've been reckless. And if what you are doing is held to be reckless and it causes damage, it's criminal damage. But the question here is, who do you pursue? Now, regardless of whether this delivery driver is coming to this house, let's assume that this delivery driver is delivering to the owner of this vehicle. The owner of this vehicle is not necessarily going to go after the delivery company here. They can quite feasibly do so, but I'll come back to that in a moment. Their first port of call is, well, with whom is their contract? Let's say they ordered, looking at the back of this lorry with the delivery lift on the back, it's obviously for something heavy, although many vehicles have that on regardless. But let's say that they were ordering a washing machine, a dryer, or a sofa, or whatever that requires this tail lift. Let's say they were delivering that. They bought it from one of these major brands, and they've used this third-party delivery company to deliver the thing. Now, here's a very important thing for you to take notice of here, because sometimes, and you will have wondered why they do this until you watch this video, but sometimes they will outsource the delivery to another company and they will make you pay the delivery company separately. They'll just brush it off and say you pay that to them directly, and they separate the liability, and they say, you're buying the sofa from us, but we just give you their details, you pay them directly, and it's down to you and them. Now, in that situation, you would be suing the delivery company, most probably, because they've put you directly to the delivery company, you're paying them directly, therefore there's a second contract arising for the delivery itself. And that delivery is a service, it's got to be done with reasonable skill and care. And if it's not, as in this case here, if it's not done with reasonable skill and care, then you can sue them for it. And it may also be an offence, but that's by the by. You don't usually get the full compensation for a criminal offence. But if they have not done that, you've not agreed to pay the delivery company separately, which I advise you don't do, by the way. I advise you to say, no, I'm buying it from you, the company, the sofa company, the washing machine company, whoever. I'm buying it from you. You please arrange the delivery. and therefore your contract remains with that company, and it is their responsibility to arrange the delivery with reasonable skill and care. And if it's not done so, then you should be suing them for not delivering it, and they can then pick up the cost of the damage. Now, it's also possible for you to go through your car insurance company, but as we all know, your premiums are likely to go up thereafter, but your car insurance will then look for somebody to blame. And in this case, there is another vehicle involved. There's not always another vehicle involved, but in this case, there very much is another vehicle involved. And it's not entirely clear. I suppose you could zoom in and figure out this number plate here, but it's not entirely clear whether you can see the number plate and so on. Maybe there's another camera that does pick up the number plate, but your insurance company would then be going after the vehicle company owner, whoever, and their insurers as well. And if not, then obviously they still insure you. It just means that they can't recover those costs from the other side, and inevitably your premiums are going to go up. But otherwise, aside from an insurance claim, and potentially even home insurance claim, depending on what your policy covers. Again, read the small print. Aside from that, you'd be suing the company from whom you've bought this equipment or whatever it is, this delivery in the first place. If not, obviously, if you're not buying anything from any company, it's nothing to do with you, and this delivery driver is just using your driveway to turn around, in which I suspect is often the case, given the layout of this driveway here. As you see, it looks like a fairly narrow road going off to the left of the screen there. Maybe these vehicles regularly realize they've gone down the wrong lane and they're using this as a turning round point, and they use this driveway as a convenient place to turn around. In that case, doubtless that's why the camera is here, to see if anything like this happens, so that they can then go after whoever it is that's caused the damage. And then they would be suing the delivery company. And they, in turn, may seek to recover it from the driver and say that it is their fault. And you often see these claims go to court with many different companies, first, second, third, fourth, fifth defendant in the claim, because each of them are trying to blame each other. So very often you'll have the insurer of the other side who's potentially refusing the liability. You'll have the company delivering it refusing liability, and all sorts of people refusing liability. But that is where you go here. Now, what often happens is the company you've bought something from will push you in the direction of the delivery company. Then the delivery company will often push you, I saw one recently, in the direction of the driver, to say that we use subcontracted drivers for our delivery services, and go speak to the driver. He's a self-employed or sole trader, whatever, driver for the delivery company, for the company that they bought the thing from. Now, in that situation, wind it back. Who is your contract with? Who did you agree for the delivery with? And work from there. And if none of them will accept liability, you sue them all. At least that's what very often happens. You sue every party in the chain and say, well, if none of you admit liability as to who's really responsible for this, let the court decide. And then what happens when you get to the end and you inevitably win your claim? The court then decide, well, who pays whose costs? And so if it was unreasonable for you to have sued, defendant 2, you might be responsible for defendant 2's costs, but defendant 1 is responsible for your costs. But what usually happens is the court will order defendant 2 to let's say defendant 1 was found to be liable. They might order defendant 1 to pay your costs and defendant 2's costs, because they should have said it's not defendant 2, it's our fault in the first place. And so we get all these arguments then about costs, who pays whose costs. So then you can imagine how difficult it is when you've got 4 or 5 claimants and 4 or 5 defendants, everybody arguing about whose fault it was, and ultimately coming down as who pays whose costs. So I hope you found that interesting video. Make sure you subscribe, and thank you for watching.